Welcome to my channel. My name is Luke Curtis and I am a photographer, come gaffer, come marketeer, and this channel is designed around helping people overcome the problems that I've overcome in my short career as a creative. And that started off as working in marketing and then moving into being a photographer, and then moving back into marketing for a lighting company, Nanlite, and then moving into being a gaffer, and all of the different kind of things that happen within that process. Hopefully I can take a little bit away from each of those and impart it onto you, so it can kind of supplement your learning to go forth and be a better creative. I can't promise you anything, but that's kind of the concept. This video today is going to be a breakdown of a recent short that I was gaffer on. So I got to work with a good friend of mine called Mark, and he wrote a small short, basically a short film, and that film was called Dead of Night. I won't spoil it because I'm going to add a link down the bottom so you can go and watch it. So if you're interested in what you've seen from kind of like the breakdown from a lighting perspective, then go and definitely support and watch the project, and hopefully I get to work with Mark on a few more projects in the future. So in terms of how we broke this down, now this was quite an easy job in terms of sheer kind of like resource and manpower, and the reason being is we were all under COVID regulations and restrictions, so we had to have a limited number of people on set. We also used somebody's house that was then converted into a set to make it more realistic and convincing that it was actually somebody's house as opposed to hiring and building a set. Now the other thing we had to consider is a lot of the body of the content is static. It happens in one room, so that means from a gaffer perspective I just had to set up the treatment for that room and keep it quite consistent for that, which was nice, because normally you have to do multiple different setups for different shoots, and you know, within the shot list you could have 3 or 4 different setups, sometimes even more. So this one was like one setup, and then we had some outside stuff that we filmed. So what I'll do is I'll start with the bits that we filmed on the outside, and it will kind of follow the way the narrative plays out within the story, and then it ends in some kind of like that main living room piece. So to start off with, we had to, and it's really difficult explaining it because we shot these bits last, but I'm going to explain these bits first. So outside we basically waited for it to be nighttime so it was dark enough, and what we effectively did is we wanted some hard, long, kind of scary, moody shadows. So we had a single point setup, so we had the Forza 60 with the Fresnel mount attached to it, and that was beaming through kind of like a gate, and the slats within the gates create that additional shadow. And Mark was obviously filming the one of the main characters coming in through the back door, and that was just like how we lit that scene. Then when this subject was inside the property, what we wanted to do is have the effect of street lights coming in from outside through one of the windows. So again, what we did is we used the Forza 60B, that was using the Fresnel lens, and that was positioned outside, pointing light through the window in the main front door. And it's really weird because in terms of how we filmed it, we filmed him in the alleyway going into the back of the house, but in terms of what we filmed inside the house, it was actually through the front door. So that's how you play with a set to kind of pull a story together, even though it doesn't kind of like logically sink in terms of where you are positioned within set. And then what we did with the Forza 60B is I made it a bit more tungsten, basically, because we were replicating streetlights. They tend to use metal halide bulbs. Metal halide bulbs are more of a tungsten. Now that's a bit of a contradiction because more and more street lamps are becoming LED, and they tend to be kind of a 5600 Kelvin like white light. But traditionally, if you're creating like you're creating a bit of mood and a bit of drama, most people will be familiar with a more tungsten light coming from street lamps. So therefore we went for the tungsten theme. And you probably didn't even know that about LED street lamps until I've just told you, and now you'll start to recognize when you walk around and go, oh yeah, that's an LED street lamp, as opposed to the old metal halide bulbs which were tungsten. So that's how we lit those pieces. And then after that, there's one piece where the main subject, Brad, who's an amazing actor as well, and he's starred in sort of like a couple of good films in the UK, so I'm going to add links down to those as well so you can check out some of Brad's work. And it was amazing working with him as well because he is a very highly skilled actor, so it was interesting watching how he digests his lines, and then he kind of gets into the character, and then he plays the character. It's really interesting because it was normally sometimes on sets they're all so big and vast, or you don't, or you're all focused on your own little projects. You don't really get that much time to spend with different people from different areas because you just want to get your job done. But because I'd set up and then there was no real change beyond that, and the team was limited, I got to spend quite a bit of time around everybody else that was involved in the project, which was great. So spending time with Brad was amazing because I got an insight into how an actor kind of goes about acting and positions themselves and gets ready to become somebody else effectively. So there's a scene where Brad is coming through the hallway. Now that scene is set up basically using the same lighting scenario that we set up for the main body of the narrative, and that's because we wanted to create this consistent effect. In most households, once you turn on your lights and you settle in for the evening, your lights are pretty consistent, so there isn't really any scope for any kind of like special effects or tweaking it beyond it to make it unrealistic. So we set up and then we work around within that space that's set up. And in terms of how we did this, again, we wanted to make use of natural light coming in from outside, or recreating what would appear to be natural light coming in from outside. So we used the Forza 300B. We put it on a heavy duty stand, point like really high up, coming down at a sharp angle, adjusting the color temperature to make it quite convincing that it was a street light coming in through the window. And with this one, we didn't use a Fresnel, we just used the hard lens, and that would allow for really hard shadows from the wooden slats within the window. So that was coming in through the window, and that's kind of setting the external ambient lighting, and that's kind of like effectively going to feel like the main source coming in through the window, or one of the main sources coming in through the window. So that's how we rigged that. That was set outside. We used the remote control, so if we needed to go up or go down, we could change it. Just in case anything needed to change within the room, we had the option to do so, but we didn't need to change anything. It was very static throughout. Once that light was positioned outside, we then moved inside to set up the main kind of key for both the subject. And the way we positioned this is we had a lamp above us, and we had to move the table slightly over because we couldn't get the rigging where the lamp is positioned, and it was an old style chandelier, so we had to offset the table slightly, which is really annoying because if it was directly underneath the chandelier, it would have aligned with the fireplace directly behind it, and we didn't get to do that, so it was a bit annoying, but no problem whatsoever. Once we did that, we used a C-stand with a boom arm coming over, and we put the Forza 60B with the hard reflector directly over both the subjects. And the idea of this is to create downwards kind of hard light. So if you can imagine you had a singular bulb or a few bulbs sort of like positioned above your head, because it's a small source, you're going to get like shadows underneath the eyes and all that sort of stuff. So we wanted to create that dramatic look, and we didn't want the light to spill too far beyond the table to add real concentration and focus to that centerpiece where the main dialogue is going to be exchanged. We made it quite tungsten as well to kind of align with the wood in the room to make it feel a little bit more natural and warmer, as you would like a home to be, especially this home as well, because there was a lot of wooden features. Wooden features will tend to kind of radiate like a tungsten warmer feel because it's your home and you want to feel comfortable and warm and safe. So that's how we position that. Then we use some PavoTube 6Cs, so 6C2. So we used 2 of those with the candle effect on them. And the reason I use 2 is, in my opinion, if you use one of them and you create the effect of a candle, it's too digitalized, like the patterns are too recognizable or too consistent to be able to convince the human eye that it's actual fire. Fire is very random, it's dotting all over the place, it's different intensities at different points, particularly if you're burning wood. If you're burning from gas, you can kind of get a consistent flame because it's being fed at a consistency. Whereas if you're burning wood, like this fireplace would be, if you're burning wood like this fireplace would be, there would be different intensities. So by using 2 set to different intensities, it creates a more convincing effect that that's actual fire. So we place those into the fireplace, and that was the main setup for that room. So we've got the Forza 300 outside, Forza 60B overhead, and then the PavoTube 6C is the fireplace to create these practicals within the space. And there's also some sound effects. So when you watch the main piece, listen out for the crackle of fire along with the light and effects to convince you that there's an actual fire cooking away, keeping us warm within our home. Then what we wanted to do is, because Brad comes in through this door, the door's left open, and we wanted to recreate light coming in from another room or from another doorway or another light source. So what I then did is I rigged a PavoTube 15C above an adjacent door and clamped it to. And the reason I did this is because the way the room was positioned the other side, we couldn't control that light enough to spill into that separate room. So what I had to do is bring a light source closer to the entrance to the main room we were filming in, so that light will spill through and give us the effect we need. But using the lights in that other room just wouldn't have done it. So by using a PavoTube 15C, I could fill the whole top half of the doorway, because a lot of the filming angle is kind of like straight on and low. This light would be coming over the top, so we get that bleed of light coming through that door. And again, I set that to quite tungsten because the main room is going to be very tungsten, and then all the other rooms in the house are going to sit along that theme. So that was set to tungsten. Hopefully from the cutaways that I recorded on my phone and the pictures that I've shown you, you'll get an idea of that setup. So it's pretty simple. We only used 5 lights in total. So the Forza 300B, the PavoTube 15C, the PavoTube 6C in the fireplace, 2 of those, and then the Forza 60 above head. We took a load more lights ready to kind of do it, but this didn't need to be over engineered. You know, the main focus is the dialogue between the characters rather than like special lighting effects and whatnot. So we didn't use loads of lights because we wanted it to feel more realistic. So hopefully like you get an idea of how I went about breaking that down. As ever, there's going to be a list of all the products down below that I used to get this project underway. There's also going to be a link to the actual piece. So I'd highly recommend go giving it a watch, because like Marc is a super creative guy, and it's great to see him come up with a concept, plan the whole shoot, bring me on board to work alongside him, and then execute. And it got really good feedback, you know, which is pretty cool. So Marc, I really appreciate you putting me on. Really enjoyed the content, and I hope the rest of you guys can enjoy it as well. So if you have any questions, pop them down in the link below. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button, and hopefully I will see you all soon. Take care.